Catch a glimpse of the best music hits. Ones and twos. Hottest tunes right here on Smart Vibes. Our life, your entertainment.
Wanaota mapembe ongeze mkia na ukini beep tunakupigia. And let me make one thing clear. Bra 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 staki kusikia. So simba so chui so mamba. Uzi yangu inatosha kujigamba. Na sina maneno kwenye kanga. Kazi juu ya kazi ya nibamba tubamba.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to ubctv. This is Conserve Our Heritage, the show that runs every Monday, 9 to 10 p.m. My name is Glen Karamagi. In the studio, I have a guest that I think will allow to introduce himself and maybe discuss more on the topic. But first is the guest. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Karamagi.
Good to see you.
Nice to see you too.
You're my guest tonight. Happy to see you, but
glad to be here too.
I would like to know who the guest I have in the studio.
Well, the guest you have this evening is called Panta Kasoma. Panta Kasoma graduated for his first degree in 1976. And
was I born? I don't know.
thereafter, went and did his master's after teaching for a year in one of the top girls' school, Mount St. Mary's, Namagunga. Went back to Makerere, did a master's in ecology, and at that time I studied weaver birds. Weaver birds, yes. And thereafter, after a couple of years, I started on my PhD because I'd been appointed lecturer, and Makerere's policy, as you know, you have to go and do a PhD. Yeah. So I was fortunate to get a scholarship to go to the University of Cambridge in the UK for my PhD.
Still in ecology?
Still in ecology, still focusing on birds, but this time larger birds, water birds. I did my field research in Queen Elizabeth National Park. So I used to go around.
So when you went to the University of Cambridge, you never got a chance to visit their birds? You have to return home to
well, it's just that the number of birds they have is nothing compared to what we have here. I mean, we have almost just over 1,000 species. For them, I think you might count maybe a few hundred species. Yeah.
Well, and now you are Dr. Panta
Kasoma. Yes.
So that after that PhD,
I became doctor.
The doctor. So this is the doctor we are having in the studio.
Yes, that's me.
Doctor, what do you do?
Well, a number of things. Right now, as of last year, about March, I was appointed on the board of trustees of Uganda Wildlife Authority. So I'm one of 9 members of the board of trustees.
At Uganda Wildlife Authority.
Uganda Wildlife Authority, and one of my roles there is chairman of the planning and development committee of the board. So that's one of the things I do. But as I said, I do quite a number of other things. In my other life, because board membership is not a full-time occupation. So in my other life, I'm the country director for the Jane Goodall Institute, an international organization registered to work here in Uganda.
So Jane Goodall Institute, what is that?
Well, the Jane Goodall Institute is named after its founder, a lady called Jane Goodall, who's a British lady who's now 83. She was 83 in April 3rd this year. Yes, she's 83. But she founded this institute way back in 1977.
In Uganda?
No, well, she founded it in California for some reason, but she had been working for many years in Tanzania, in Gombe Stream National Park, working on chimpanzees. And one day she was flying from Dar es Salaam to Kigoma in a small aircraft. And then when she looked down...
Kigoma is in Uganda?
Kigoma is in Dar es Salaam. No, in Tanzania, close to Lake Tanganyika. Okay. That's where this park is. So she was looking down, and then she realized all of a sudden that all the forest that she had first seen when she first came to Tanzania, then Tanganyika, in 1960, was almost gone. The hills were bare, everything was disappearing. And so she got worried. She said, if I continue just being a researcher, I might not have any research subjects in another 20 years. Okay. The forest will be gone and there will be no chimps. So she decided that she's going to change from being a researcher to being a conservationist. And so she founded the Jane Goodall Institute. Yes.
Oh, that's quite good. Now,
yeah,
it is after that that she decided to become a conservationist. Mm-hmm. And then Jane Goodall Institute, what do they do?
Well, what they do...
It's an institution for conservation.
Yes.
Now conservation, it's run the institution.
Yes.
What do they do?
Okay, well, they do quite a number of things, but the focus is the chimpanzee as a species, because she started her work on chimpanzees, and so therefore she wanted to focus on chimpanzee conservation. However, over the years, one realizes that you know, you cannot just conserve a chimpanzee in isolation. You've got to look at its habitat, which is the forest habitat. You've got to look at the people around those habitats. So now our approach is really holistic in that we look at the habitat, we look at the people, as well as the chimpanzee itself.
So the topic today is our close cousins, the chimpanzees. And I think this is where we are going to be centering on.
Yes.
The chimpanzees, I was reading somewhere, we are 90-something%. The DNA of human and chimpanzee. You can make it clear, you're a doctor here.
Well, it's about 98, just over 98% of the DNA is shared. I mean, it's similar between the chimpanzee and humans. Actually, they are our closest relatives.
In the wild?
Well, in any animal.
What do you mean human? Does this also include the white people, or it's
yes,
only,
yes.
It's only the
no. Humans are humans. Their DNA is similar. So whether you're white or yellow or black or what, the DNA is similar. Now the chimpanzees are next to us, and then after that are the gorillas.
Okay.
So that's why we call them our closest cousins.
Cousins.
Yes.
The chimpanzees.
Yes.
Before we go at length with the chimpanzees, I will ask the producer to give us a chimpanzee, and then we will have a gorilla, because I want you to have a difference here. Two weeks ago, we had a caller from Kumi who really was asking, what's the difference between a gorilla and a chimpanzee? It was quite a very good question.
Yes.
But you're telling us we are more close to a chimpanzee than a gorilla.
Yes.
Why do you think we are more close to a chimpanzee than a gorilla?
Well, it's really in terms of the brain size relative to the body weight. You see, when you compare the brains in all animal species, you know, the human beings have got the largest brain in terms of the body weight. So we have a relatively large brain compared to our size.
Oh,
yeah. Similarly, the chimpanzee is next in terms of their body weight. and then after that the gorilla. And of course the brain size and the various regions of the brain determine the intelligence. And so that's why in terms of genetic makeup, these cousins of ours are really very close to us. The only thing they can't do, of course, is communicate like we do, like we are doing
So
now.
that percent that is remaining is the clothes we put on, probably the lens and glasses we are putting on, maybe the car we are driving.
It's not just the outside things, but there are some other issues, like, I mean, they can't talk, they can communicate.
To themselves.
They can
But
communicate
if you
to
stay with a
themselves.
chimpanzee for a while, you can talk to it.
Oh,
Can
yeah,
it
yeah.
listen?
It can't listen. And it will, I mean, if a dog can't listen and understand what you're talking, then a chimpanzee would. Actually, there are some experiments going on in the United States where chimpanzees are being taught to understand, our, words and be able to, make similar words. But of course, they are different species, much as we are close. They really can't be humans.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
That's the difference that God made between man and chimpanzee.
exactly.
And no one can question
Nobody
that.
can question
Though,
that.
in science and in
Yeah.
conserve our heritage, we try to bring that close relationship we have with chimpanzees.
Yes.
And I'm welcoming you once again to Conserve Our Heritage. The show has just kick-started. Chimpanzees are 98.6% human.
Yes.
But the producer, I think, is going to be giving us, there's a question that is still pending that we keep getting it all over. Chimpanzee, gorilla, these are the same things. If you look at it, it's more like what we've been failing to identify. You meet a gorilla, you say, I've met a chimpanzee.
Okay.
You meet a chimpanzee, I think it's a gorilla.
Yeah.
And out of the blue, if someone asked you, would not differentiate. I'm glad that we have a doctor who's much into it, and he will definitely give us the difference between the two.
Yeah.
And we are good to go on this.
Well, yeah, you definitely can be able to tell a difference between chimpanzees and gorillas. First of all, gorillas are much larger in size.
Also in a human, there are those who are...
Oh, I know, but the gorillas are almost twice the size of, chimpanzees in terms of body weight. They're really large. Their faces are black. Ears, normal like ours.
Let me hope the producer will get that picture as soon as possible, because the doctor is trying to to get me a gorilla, but I can't just draw the picture of that gorilla. But
then, of course, another distinct feature, when you look at the head of a gorilla, you'll see that it has a distinct sagittal crest. Sort of the head is like sort of pointed, whereas the chimpanzee one is flat.
it's flat.
And if you look at the ears of the chimpanzees are actually like, sticking out. Large ears sticking out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just like humans.
Well, some humans, not every human.
Okay.
Some humans do have large ears. Yeah.
And I think I'm trying to look at a gorilla, and probably I think it's something personal, but the producer will be giving us the pictures in the course of the show. Now, a chimpanzee is very close to human, and we pretty much know we have it in Uganda.
Yep.
Do we get the value for it as Ugandans, or it's only you, the doctor, and your team who know how good the chimpanzee is?
Well, for one thing, one needs to appreciate.
So what's that? Is that a gorilla? Is that you can?
No, those are chimpanzees.
Okay.
Yeah, those are chimpanzees.
And I think,
can
producer,
see
if
that
you
the
can
head-
stop that, because if you can pause it a bit, and then the doctor, I think he should be giving us exactly this. So
Yeah.
this is the
You
chimpanzee.
can see that the head has no distinct crest, like like the gorillas do. You can see the ear,
Yes.
very large, and sticking out like that. Now, if on the other hand we were to see a gorilla, you'd see
No,
that,
this is the feeding habits. Are they more close to what we do?
the feeding habits, chimpanzees are omnivorous, yes. They do eat vegetable material, but they also do eat meat. They do catch other animals in the forest and eat them.
But they eat it raw.
They eat
find
it raw. They eat it raw. They don't cook.
I don't think but humans
Gorillas,
cook.
gorillas, on the other hand, are totally vegetarian.
Oh,
Yeah, they are totally
so this is a
vegetarian.
chimpanzee.
Yeah, that is a chimpanzee.
The head can Okay, I think you described it well.
You see
That's
the head
interesting.
is flat, large ears. The face can range from being black to actually being pinkish,
Okay.
whereas in gorillas it's always black. But of course, like other apes, you know, you can see there is no tail.
Okay.
Chimpanzees don't have tails. Gorillas don't have tails.
So that is a chimpanzee.
Yes, that is a chimpanzee.
That is what is close to human.
Yeah, that is our close cousin.
Cousins.
Yes.
Very interesting. Our research can get us a gorilla. Before we go far with this show, I think we should get the difference between a chimpanzee and a gorilla.
Yes.
And that is the chimpanzee. And
That is the
you're very close to this than a gorilla.
Yes.
I can't get the difference. I don't know why you're saying so close. But in Uganda, where do we find them?
Well, in Uganda, chimpanzees occur along the western Albertine Rift. So all the forests, you know, right up, you know, from Budongo, going southward through Bugoma, you know, Bitwara, Kibale down, Kashiwa Kitomi, Kalinju, Maramagambo, all those forests have chimpanzees. And then northwest, in West Nile, there are some forests, little forests, very close to the Sudan border. There's Oche, Mount Oche. There have been some nests of chimpanzees seen there. When we were last there, we could not actually see them, but the people say, yeah, those forests have chimpanzees. So, but this Uganda is the easternmost limit of the chimpanzees. So you do not find them in Kenya. So
There are no chimpanzees in Kenya?
No, they are not.
These are our neighbors.
These are our neighbors. They don't have chimpanzees in nature.
So about Tanzania? We have
Tanzania, again, as I said, the forests close to Lake Tanganyika. Again, we're looking at the Albertine Rift as it goes down. So that's where, then as you go further east, no chimpanzees.
So in Rwanda, also no chimpanzees?
Rwanda, they might have been there once, but
So
the
Uganda, we are
forest, we are blessed to have them. We are blessed to have them.
But why chimpanzees? I'm looking at the chimpanzee, this animal that is
Yes.
serving its life, and that is it. And,
Yeah.
and we are interested in chimpanzees.
Why chimpanzees is, you know, apart from the fact that they are close cousins and one doesn't want to hurt their cousin, there is also the fact that they are part of you know, the overall ecosystem. They are a very important part of the forest ecosystem. Chimpanzees play a crucial role because they eat fruit, and as they move around the forest, the fruit is going through the alimentary canal, and the seed is you know, they defecate the seed, and you know, the processing, the digestive juices as it goes, you know, they remove they soften the hard coating of the seeds, and so those seeds easily germinate when they are being dispersed along the forest. Now, if there were no dispersers such as chimpanzees, and all the seeds were just dropping down under the mother tree, there would be so much competition, and you know, most of these trees would be dying out. So really, all the big trees that you see in the forest with fruits get actually, one could say, planted by these dispersers such as chimpanzees, and of course there are other species.
The birds and
birds,
that.
yeah.
But now you're giving me a good point. The chimpanzee is there enjoying a fruit,
Yeah.
and little do we know where the seeds are going to be. Now we are losing our natural, how do you say, habitats,
Yes.
trees and all the rest.
Yeah.
But we don't know how these trees came to existence.
No, we don't.
It's like you're giving me a point that these chimpanzees, as they eat, they keep planting, and those are the natural trees.
Yes.
We are losing the habitats, trees like mahogany and these big ones that we know they are very strong,
Yeah,
and
mosses and
all those ones.
trees.
But we don't know how they came to existence.
Yeah.
And they're telling me when they keep planting them, we know how important the trees are to human.
Yes. Because as you can imagine, tropical forests have a very high variety of, you know, tree species. Unlike temperate forests where you find one or two species of tree forming the forest, here you have, you know, hundreds of species within the same
Are they
forest.
is that interconnected? The gorillas, chimpanzees, the trees, human?
Well, there is a connection in that, as I said, the trees are providing food to the chimpanzee.
Yes.
The chimpanzee then disperses the seeds of the trees. So in terms of propagating the tree species, the chimpanzee is important to the tree, much as the tree is important to the chimpanzee. Now, the humans also depend on forests for various services, you know, apart from the direct use value that we get from the timber. But there are the other indirect values, you know, like moderating local climate, you know, regulating the water table, you know, water hydrological cycle. You know, that areas that have lost their forests.
So there is a reason why these animals are living.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
it's giving me a thought that maybe these animals are the reason why Uganda is the Pearl of Africa.
They are one of the reasons why we are the Pearl of Africa. Because,
The aeration, the climate.
yes, all these things which we take for granted, by the way, it's only recently that people are beginning to realize how important it is to keep nature. When people got this prolonged drought, then they began to ask, yes, people began to ask themselves, why are we getting these prolonged droughts? We used to get rain at this time. We are no longer getting rain at this time.
Seasons are changing.
Seasons are changing. All because we are manipulating, we are, you know,
You're too aggressive.
we are too aggressive. We are destroying our environment. We are destroying the habitats of these animals. And in so doing, we also will be endangering them. Oh, by the way, I should have mentioned that the chimpanzee is categorized as an endangered species globally. They only occur in Africa, and African forests are disappearing, and therefore this species is threatened. So when people come to Uganda to look at the Pearl of Africa, one of the things, in addition to gorillas, you know, many people come to go to Bwindi to watch gorillas.
Yeah, well, why is it that they are more interested in gorillas than... Okay, they may also be interested in chimpanzees,
Yes.
but looks like Uganda is making more money in gorillas
From
than
gorilla, yeah. Well, partly because of marketing, but one could say that the mountain gorilla is unique, very unique. I mean, we have only about 700 globally.
So are there gorillas that are not mountain gorillas?
The only mountain gorilla habitat is Bwindi and Gahinga. Of course, then you cross over to Rwanda and then DRC. That's the only mountain gorilla habitat.
Okay.
And that's why everybody wants to come and see the mountain gorilla. There are only 700 left globally.
Oh.
And half of them are in Uganda.
Uganda.
Yes, half of those are in Uganda. So chimpanzees, on the other hand, are still more abundant. Like if you go to Congo, I mean, the largest population of chimpanzees in the forests of DRC.
Oh, this DRC. Congo.
Yes, that's where they are. We have 5,000 of them in Uganda. So much as we've been losing forests, we still have a reasonable number.
Number of them, yes.
Yeah.
But if the conservationists don't hit the ground hard,
Yeah.
I'm very sure we might lose even the 5,000 we are having.
Yes. The good point, the good aspect of it is that many of these habitats, like those forests I mentioned, are still protected by government. However, I should say, about 75% of the population is in those forests, and another 25% occurs in smaller forests in between those forests. And it is those forests that are being hammered because they are on private land. People are just converting them to sugarcane or tobacco or rice. And in the process, chimpanzees, of course, get dispossessed of their habitat. It's like people are losing their lands. They have nowhere to stay. These chimpanzees then raid people's crops, and that causes a bit of a conflict with human communities, as you can imagine.
Well, we'll be going down for this break, and when we return, we're going to be looking at how the species is one of the endangered species, right?
Yes.
And one of the reasons why they are is what the doctor is going to be telling us here in the studio. It's Conserve Heritage. Let us go down for the simple break. And even before that, we will also get to know how a gorilla looks like, because the producer is here to give us a taste of a gorilla after the break. Welcome back from that break. This is Conserve Our Heritage every Monday 9 to 10 p.m. My name is Glen Stephen Karamagi. In the studio, I'm with Dr. Panta and a very senior conservationist. And we are zeroing on our closest cousins, and those are the chimpanzees. It is 98.6% the DNA of human that is more close to chimpanzees. Not far from gorillas as well. So, as the recent reports are very clear, that chimpanzees are some of the, or maybe the endangered species. And the doctor is in the studio to tell us more about it, because he must have the research right on his fingertips. Tell us why gorillas are more endangered, and yet they are close to human beings. It is something I really, doctor, I wanted to know.
The reason they are endangered is because their habitat has been declining over the years. Their range has also shrunk. As I was mentioning earlier, places like Rwanda used to have chimpanzees. They are no longer there. You find, you find them in, there is a forest, one forest west of Rwanda, where you still have chimpanzees. And also in Burundi.
Okay,
there's
a part in Burundi.
There's a part in Burundi where there are also some chimpanzees. So, but when you look at the overall numbers of chimpanzees on the continent, the numbers come down drastically over the years. Main cause, habitat destruction. Because the forest...
It has nothing to do with like these guys who take ivory from elephants, they are selling.
No.
The main thing is the habitat is being destroyed.
The habitat shrinking, being destroyed for other uses, for agriculture, urban development, infrastructure. So as the habitat decreases, obviously, the species itself decreases. But in the west of the continent,
that is Western Africa?
Western Africa, and also Central Africa, on top of habitat, chimpanzees are eaten. They form part of bush meat. So there is a threat there. People are eating chimpanzees.
Okay, in a conservation language, are they also do you term them as
carnivores? Oh, you mean like cannibals?
Yeah, because if a human eats a gorilla or a chimpanzee, which is 98.6%, that you're eating your cousin.
One could say yes.
Or the language changes there.
But I mean, I think the language, just because we are different species, somebody will say, that is bush meat. To them, these forested areas, by the way, because of the fact that they didn't have many grasslands where cattle could be raised, you'll find that they eat almost anything in the forest. So many monkeys are delicacies and all that.
Now in Uganda, now look, exactly, that's a snare.
Yeah, that is a wire snare, which had caught a chimpanzee. What you are seeing there is the damage to the hand of a chimpanzee. So what happens is that people set snares in the forest.
Specifically to get chimpanzees
or something else? No, at least in Uganda, people don't go out to set snares
but
to
this
catch
is Uganda.
chimpanzees. Yes. People are hunting duikers, people are hunting bush pigs, people are hunting little antelopes in the forest. Now, because those snares are not selective, chimpanzees, as they move around, get caught. And, as they pull to free themselves, the snare gets tighter.
Now, when you get snares, like it is getting tighter here.
Yeah.
In Uganda, how do you get them? Is it a phone call? Is it?
The fortunate chimpanzee that might be seen with a snare, and somebody who is informed will call the Uganda Wildlife Authority.
Okay.
And then Uganda Wildlife Authority has got a partnership with the Jane Goodall Institute. So they call the Jane Goodall Institute, and our vets go out to the field, and they disable the chimpanzee, they dart it, it goes to sleep, and then they cut off that wire snare.
Oh my God.
and then they treat the wound, inject it with long-acting antibiotic, and let it go. And in many cases, these chimpanzees have gone ahead to recover.
So in Uganda, there are no much cases of eating them.
No.
Is there an option? Because if I wanted a daika,
yes,
all of a sudden I find
a
chimp in my trap.
Chances are, you know, many of these dietary, habits have got a cultural element. So somebody would say, I couldn't eat a
You
monkey.
might think this is a human being. If you
Yeah,
look at the
I couldn't eat a monkey. I couldn't eat, a chimp.
the chimp.
But to some people,
It's bushmeat.
It's bushmeat. So I think Uganda, we are fortunate in that the majority of people will not eat.
Is there enough
this,
sensitization to these communities in protected areas to avoid going, for these wild animals? Specifically, looking at chimpanzee,
Yeah.
thinking of having it as bushmeat.
Well, we do have some programs around some of the forest reserves where we're working. And we have a snare removal program also to try and remove as many of those snares from the forest as possible. So we work with, for example, in Kibale National Park, we work with the Kibale Chimpanzee Project. And they do the actual snare removal from the forest, which is a big problem because people are relatively poor around these forests.
Yeah, true.
And so they look at the forest as a source of meat.
And you at Uganda Life Authority, it is like it's a no-go zone.
Well, yes, if it is a national park, it is a no-go zone. However, increasingly people are beginning to realize that we need to work with the communities, neighboring
Now, these are
communities.
the snares you pick.
Those are the wire snares, heaps of wire snares that are found
in the national
forest.
park.
Yeah, they are set in the national park. They are set
I am
in
told
forest
these wires,
reserves.
as it's called Jane Goodall Institute, Uganda, you help the communities around to probably get the wires and make other
Or
materials.
try to use them. Yeah, we've attempted to do that at Budongo.
Yes,
If
are
you
those
look,
the materials
if
you
you
get?
look at those cards,
Yes.
people have made chimpanzee shapes out of and
The wires.
Yes, out of the wires and put them on those cards. So the community, say actually a women's group called Vomu Women's Group, it makes those cards and then we buy them off them and our partners outside import them and.
So you find it close that the community around protected areas, they're the ones that planted these wire snares in the park.
Yes, they are the ones who plant them.
So you give them an option.
We are trying to give them an option to try and move away. And of course, on top of this kind of business, we also try to look at other livelihood options. Remember that one of the excuses that you give for going into the forest is, we don't have meat. So there have been programs where people have had access to goats, for example, try to raise goats as a substitute to going into the forest to hunt. It works to some extent, but as you know, with many of these things, it takes a lot of resources to be able to satisfy such a need as that.
Well, we'll be opening up our phone calls in the next few minutes, and some SMSs will be also coming away. The number is very clear, 0751-822-511. You can be part of the show. We are looking at our closest cousins. I'm very sure you might find some difficulties in differentiating a chimpanzee and a gorilla, but the doctor in the studio is telling us those are our closest cousins. And it's quite hurting. I'm not saying hurting me being close to a chimpanzee, but it's hard for us to understand that these are our cousins, but for them they're in the wild.
Yes.
And for us we are
here.
Is it because of, what brings that? Do you think if humans are put in the bush with the chimpanzee, there's no difference?
Well,
shall we also have a hairy body?
I guess there would be a difference. I mean, these things have come about as a result of.
They used to tell us that the revolution, man was a chimpanzee.
No, I don't think man was a chimpanzee. It's just that we have similar ancestors. So that we have a relative way back in our history.
Who's that? Slopas?
Well, these are no, Zinjanthropus was very close to human being. So even by that time, perhaps the lines had already separated between the chimpanzees and
human.
What you call the hominids, you know, the humans. So the fact that we have this very short genetic distance is a sign that way back in history, actually, they say about 6 to 7 million years ago, we had a common ancestor, and during this period of time, we've separated and gone separate ways. The chimpanzees stayed out there. We, by some fate of chance, developed a bigger brain. We're able to evolve better, and we are able to manipulate our environment much better than they can. However, we should be able to take responsibility for the rest of the world.
And take care of our cousins.
Even if you were to go back to to religion, for example, whether Islam or Christianity or Judaism, you'll find that we were given a responsibility to look after everything that had been created with us. We are supposed to have been created last and then given the responsibility to look after all these things. I don't think the responsibility was to go and destroy those things.
But I think the Bible has it very clearly. A man was to take care of these.
Yes, we are supposed to take care of them, use them for our benefit, but not to destroy them.
So these are the options you're giving community members. Beekeeping.
Those are some of the options. If you are living near the forest, you could make an income by keeping bees, for example. By the way, one of these things people take for granted with these bees is that those bees are just out there. They're a menace. Our crops wouldn't be able to survive if we didn't have bees. Earlier on, we were talking about this business of connectivity, interconnectedness.
Yes.
Now, bees are very good pollinators of our crops. So if you're growing beans, if you're growing coffee, if you're growing anything, if there are no bees, your products are not going to come out. You're not going to get a good harvest. So these bees are out there.
And even when we are studying pollination in primary,
that
was very clear with our primary
these insects are the ones which are doing it for us.
Yes.
But you see, we take it for granted. And so we use pesticides indiscriminately. We are spraying all over the place. And we are killing bees, which is harmful to us.
So does that really, if you look at your research, have you tried to go down and see whether these communities around the park are enjoying the options you're giving them, or they see it as a liability? Because you are not giving them options. First of all, the parks are very well protected, that even accessibility is not like how it used to, like they think.
Yeah.
And you're giving them options, rearing bees and maybe using other crafts out of the wire snares and other activities like we are watching or we are seeing on screen.
Yes.
Is it working according to your research?
Yes, it is working, because you see, the main problem out there is income levels, very low income levels. So any intervention that tries to improve the income levels of the households at village level is very welcome. You'd be surprised that kids sometimes may not be able to go to school or be able to afford things like exercise books just because of very low income. However, if a farmer then gets some hives, these days we've discovered that it doesn't pay to give one hive or two hives, at least 10. If you have 10 hives, then you are able to produce sufficient honey that you could then, sell. And there's a ready market for honey.
Yeah, of course.
Everywhere. So
I think Uganda is now being sensitized on taking natural things.
Yeah.
They're running away from sugar.
Yes.
And they are
giving looking at
a try
things
on
like honey. And,
So at Jane Goodall Institute, Uganda, you're working hard with Uganda Life Authority.
Yes.
And you're making it look like it is easier for these communities living in protected areas have an option instead of hunting.
Yeah.
Now, like you said, we have 5,000 chimpanzees in the wild.
Yes.
How about on Ngamba Island, because they also have chimpanzees? Is it also part of those endangered species that are being attacked by Ugandans?
Well, the Ngamba Island chimpanzees wouldn't be there if we didn't have the problem of hunting and killing and trading chimpanzees for the pet trade. That's another aspect I didn't mention. People take baby chimps for the pet trade. And many of those chimps you see at Ngamba were actually captured as babies when they were being transported mainly from DRC through Uganda.
So most of these chimps we are
Yeah,
looking at,
they've grown up now, but most of those were babies.
where were they taking them? For
Oh, they take the Middle East, no, as pets. You know, people just like to keep them in the Middle East. These very rich sheikhs, and you know, they like to carve wildlife as pets. So when a chimp is a baby, it is very cute, like many young things. Unfortunately, as it grows, it becomes very dangerous. In fact, about 2 years ago, you might have heard of a lady in the US who was actually killed by her chimpanzee. When they grow old, you know, they become quite strong, and you know, their temperament changes. You know, they are no longer babies. You know, you can't just play around with them anyhow.
it killed?
Yeah, and you know, they are very strong. One chimpanzee, you know, could have the strength. One male chimpanzee could have the strength of about 7 adult males.
Wow.
Yeah, they're very strong, those animals.
So were these community members being sensitized on?
Here we have, those are some of the staff of Uganda Wildlife Authority being sensitized on the use of technology in detecting forest degradation. So there is an application that can be used. The white man you see there is Dr. Lillian Pinter at Jane Goodall Institute, USA. Is instructing them to use those tabs to detect deforestation. Yeah.
So the sensitization goes as far as the primary school?
Yeah, it goes to schools. You know, school kids love learning about the forest and hearing about the forest. So we have 3 forest education centers, one in Budongo, another one in between Bugoma and Wambabia, and the third in Kalinji.
So that means you have a prediction that in the next 5-10 years, Uganda's wildlife will be very safe, as long as communities around the park are very well sensitized about the importance of this wildlife.
Yeah, the thing is, once people know the value of wildlife, once these youths begin to appreciate that wildlife is important, then these youths are not going to grow into hunters. They're not going to set snares in the forest. They're going to be able to appreciate the value of wildlife. And so that means that you know, I can't say maybe 10 years it will be safe, but at least we are looking at the long term and thinking to be relatively safer.
Now, Doctor, before we wind up, because time will never be enough for us, you would clearly tell the public what you think we're supposed to do as far as conservation, mainly chimpanzees. Yeah.
Well, what I would like to tell the public is that we are part of nature. In order for us to survive as a species, we have to conserve nature. So by destroying any aspect of nature, we are destroying our own chances of survival. So really, my message to all Ugandans is that we need to conserve nature, not just chimpanzees, because once you conserve nature, then you are assuring us and assuring ourselves of a bright future. And I think that's the takeaway message I would leave with you, that our own survival depends on the survival of the rest of nature.
So thank you very much, Doctor. And see you. It's a very big message. It's a big message. Yes. Our survival will depend on the survival of nature. Keep it UBC. Yes. The news is up next. It has been Conserve Heritage. See you next Monday, same time. Keep it UBC.
Thank you.